Walk into an American store in 2026 and you can feel it. The air is different, the shelves are different, the entire experience feels like a distorted reflection of what it used to be. The stores aren't empty, but they're hollow. The products aren't gone, but they're shrinking. The aisles aren't closed, but they're reduced. Everything looks familiar, yet somehow cheaper, thinner, smaller, and more desperate. This isn't temporary. This isn't supply chain noise. This is the beginning of a permanent transformation. A retail system cracking under pressure and quietly reinventing itself in a way that leaves the consumer holding the bill. Retail theft, labor shortages, corporate bankruptcies, failing supply chains, shrinkflation, consolidation, inflation, store closures, all of it merging into a new reality where store shelves no longer serve the shopper, but the shareholder. 2026 is the year we realize a brutal truth. American retail isn't recovering. It's evolving into something leaner, harsher, and far less generous. The store shelves of the past are gone, and the replacements tell a story no one wants to read. 1. The death of variety, when stores couldn't afford choice anymore. It happens quietly, so quietly most shoppers don't notice at first. A brand missing here, a flavor missing there, a product line that used to stretch across an entire shelf now squeezed into a single row. There's no sign, no announcement, no apology taped to the display. One day your favorite item is simply gone, and the shelf looks a little emptier, a little sadder. A little more like a store preparing for its own funeral. This is the death of variety, the first and most painful stage of the 2026 retail collapse. America's stores aren't running out of food or merchandise, they're running out of options. The age of endless choice, 20 brands of ketchup, 15 kinds of cereal, a wall of shampoos, and every scent imaginable is over. Retailers can no longer afford to carry products that don't sell at scale. Every inch of shelf space is now a calculation. Does it turn a profit? Does it justify the storage? Does it justify the risk of theft? If the answer is no, it disappears. Chains that once prided themselves on variety are cutting their assortments by 20, 30, even 40%. Not because they want to, but because the financial pressure is suffocating them. Grocers are slashing slow-moving items. Pharmacies are reducing beauty sections. Big box stores are cutting toys, tools, electronics, home goods, anything that doesn't churn profit with machine-like consistency. Manufacturers feel the shift too. If a brand doesn't have the volume to compete nationally, it gets pushed out. If a small supplier can't absorb rising freight or pay slotting fees, it loses its place. The shelves narrow until only the giants remain. The Walmarts, the Kroger-backed brands, the PepsiCos, the Nestle's, the conglomerates with enough power to survive a shrinking market. Walk the aisles now, and the sameness hits you. Fewer colors, fewer labels, fewer risks. The marketplace of variety has become a conveyor belt of essentials, not because retailers want to sell less, but because they can't afford to sell more. Every SKU is now a liability, every new product a gamble. And then there's the psychological shift. Shoppers don't browse anymore. They search, they hunt, they settle, they pick whatever is left. Grocery runs feel less like shopping and more like scavenging through a curated list of whatever the store could still afford to stock this month. The impact ripples outward. Small brands die first. Local products disappear. Niche items evaporate. Innovation dries up because no retailer wants to gamble on a new product when the shelves are already shrinking. The entire ecosystem that once made American retail feel abundant, the endless options, the weird flavors, the new releases, collapses under the weight of economic survival. And then comes the darker truth retailers won't say out loud. Variety isn't just expensive, it's risky, yo. Every extra item is another chance for theft, another item to lock up, another thing to stock, track, insure, and protect. Stores can barely keep staff, barely keep the lights on, barely keep up with rising losses. Variety becomes a luxury they can't justify. So the aisles shrink, the choices shrink, the brands shrink, shoppers shrink their expectations, and the shelves begin to resemble a world that feels less prosperous, less abundant, less hopeful. The death of variety is the first sign that something fundamental has broken, but it's not the most visible sign. That comes next, when stores start putting everything behind glass. 2. The rise of locked cases, when everyday items became high-security merchandise. It starts with the razors, then the baby formula, then the detergent, then the medicine, then the makeup, then the deodorant, then the toothpaste. Little by little, aisle by aisle, products that once sat openly on shelves like ordinary necessities begin migrating behind glass, behind plastic, behind metal, behind locks that require keys, codes, buzzers, or a summoned employee who may or may not ever show up. By 2026, the locked case isn't a rare security measure. It's the defining symbol of American retail. Walk into a store today, and the experience feels less like shopping and more like attempting to access restricted evidence at a police station. You scan the aisle, find the product you need, and realize you can't touch it without requesting permission from a worker already stretched so thin they're managing 3 departments at once. A simple purchase turns into a negotiation with the store's security protocols. And that's the point. Stores aren't protecting the products from customers. They're protecting themselves from collapse. Retail theft didn't rise, it exploded. Organized groups treating stores like open warehouses. Local gangs hitting multiple locations in one afternoon. Ordinary shoppers grabbing items to resell online. People stealing food because they can't afford it. People stealing necessities because inflation made survival feel criminal. Shrink isn't a nuisance anymore. It's a death sentence. Some stores lose 20% of inventory every month. Others lose so much they can no longer afford to stay open. Insurance providers pull out, refusing to cover locations considered high risk. Police departments overwhelmed by calls stop responding to theft reports altogether. Suddenly, locking up everything isn't paranoia. It's the only way to keep the lights on. But the deeper tragedy is what this shift reveals about the country itself. Everyday items are now treated like contraband. A bottle of shampoo displayed like jewelry, a can of baby formula behind plastic barriers, cold medicine requiring ID and a waiting period. Products that used to symbolize abundance now symbolize scarcity, risk, and desperation. Shoppers feel it in the atmosphere. The trust is gone. The openness is gone. The sense of ease is gone. People walk aisles without touching anything, afraid of looking suspicious. Employees stay behind counters, distrustful of everyone who walks in. Bright stores feel dimmer, quieter, more tired, as if the entire retail experience is collapsing under an invisible weight. And then there's the worst part. Locking items up doesn't solve the problem. It slows theft. It shifts theft. It frustrates honest customers. It drives people to online shopping. It accelerates store closures. It makes physical retail feel hostile, expensive, and inconvenient, pushing the system closer to the cliff it's been inching toward for years. By 2026, the locked case becomes the defining aesthetic of the new American store. A visual reminder that something is breaking, not just in retail, but in society itself. When everyday necessities require protection, it's not the products that are in crisis, it's the country, and the shelves are about to reveal the next stage of the collapse. Not what's behind glass, but what's inside the packages themselves. 3. The era of shrinkflation shelves, when everything got smaller, except the price tag. You don't notice it at first. No one does. That's the trick. The box looks the same, the bag looks the same, the bottle looks the same. Same colors, same branding, same cheerful cartoon character insisting nothing has changed. But something has changed. Something subtle, something maddening, something you only realize once you're home, staring at a bag of chips that feels like it's filled with more air than food. Shrinkflation isn't new, but 2026 turns it into an art form, a science, a national pastime, an industrial-scale optical illusion designed to convince a financially desperate nation that everything is fine while corporations quietly reduce the amount of product you get for the same or higher price. Cereal boxes slim down, snack bags lose ounces, Toilet paper rolls shed sheets. Gatorade bottles lose their curves and their volume. Chocolate bars look like they went on a diet. Yogurt cups shrink like they were left in the sun. Then comes the quality shrinkflation. Cheaper ingredients, thinner fabrics, weaker plastics, watered down formulas, less meat in the frozen dinners, more filler in the canned soups, vegetables that look like they were carved with a budget. A product that once fed a family now barely feeds a single person, but the price tag insists nothing has changed. Sometimes it even goes up. Retailers blame suppliers. Suppliers blame inflation. Corporations blame shipping. Economists blame global instability. Everyone blames someone else. And meanwhile, the consumer stares at the shelf, wondering when groceries became treasure chests with half the treasure missing. But shrinkflation does more than insult the wallet. It destroys trust. People stop believing the numbers on the label. They stop expecting honesty from brands. Buying food becomes a scavenger hunt for the least deceptive packaging. Shoppers take out their phones, comparing old product sizes to new ones like detectives assembling evidence. And the effect is everywhere. Portions shrink in restaurants. Cup sizes shrink. Soda fountains dispense more water and less syrup. A family-sized meal quietly becomes a maybe 2 people if they're not hungry size. At the same time, brands plaster words like new, improved, refreshed, and sustainable packaging on the front. Code phrases that translate directly to less product, same price. Please don't notice. The shelves themselves tell the story. They're filled with items that look full but aren't. Bags puffed with nitrogen for theatrics. Containers double-walled to appear larger. Jars with false bottoms. Packaging designed to deceive because the truth, that real affordability is gone, would be too devastating to acknowledge. The supermarket becomes a psychological minefield. Shoppers feel cheated even when they can't pinpoint why. They feel poorer even when their income hasn't changed. They feel like they're losing even when they're doing everything right, and they are. Because shrinkflation happens for one reason. People can't afford the real cost of what things should cost. If companies charged the true price, the shelves would be full and the carts would be empty. So they shrink the product instead, hoping the financial illusion holds. But illusions don't last. Eventually, shoppers notice the missing ounces, the missing value, the missing dignity. And when the illusion breaks, they stop buying, they stop trusting, they stop returning. And now the shelves, already thin on variety, already locked behind glass, already shrinking in size, face the final symptom of collapse, disappearing entirely. Whole stores gone, whole neighborhoods abandoned, whole cities cut off from retail itself. What comes next isn't subtle, it's not invisible, it's not shrinkflation, it's full retail extinction. 4. The permanent retail desert, when whole cities lost more stores than they could replace. At first, it looks like an isolated store closure, a Target shutting down on the west side of town, a Walgreens locking its doors, a mid-sized grocery chain quietly retreating from a neighborhood it once served for decades. But closures spread like cracks in dry earth. One anchor store disappears, then 2, then 3. Once the anchors fall, the smaller shops follow. The nail salon, the pet store, the shoe outlet, the bakery, the dollar store. The parking lot turns gray with emptiness. And then one day, almost without warning, the entire shopping district is gone. Not paused, not struggling, gone. This is the rise of the permanent retail desert. Regions where the stores don't just close for a season or a downturn, but vanish with no intention of returning. What begins in inner cities spreads to suburbs, then rural counties, then to places that once felt untouchable. The collapse is indifferent. It doesn't care where you live, who you voted for, or how much your zip code used to boast. Stores leave because they can't survive the math. Theft up, insurance up, labor up, rent up, shipping up, sales down, variety down, profit down. Add it together and the only thing that makes financial sense is leaving. When a corporation writes off a location, it isn't emotional, it's arithmetic. Communities feel the loss instantly. The nearest pharmacy is suddenly 40 minutes away. The nearest full grocery store is across town. The nearest big box retailer is in another county. What used to be a 5-minute errand becomes a half-day trip, which becomes a deterrent. which becomes a burden, which becomes a crisis. And then the secondary collapse begins. Public transit doesn't serve the area anymore because no one is traveling there. Uber drivers avoid the area because demand drops. Streets grow quieter, then more dangerous. The few remaining shops see foot traffic evaporate. Anyone with the means moves away. Those without remain behind, stranded in neighborhoods where the only stores left sell lottery tickets, dusty snacks, and expired canned goods. Retail deserts create economic deserts. Economic deserts create social deserts. Entire communities sink into isolation simply because the stores that once kept them connected to the economy have disappeared. For families without cars, the situation is devastating. Every grocery run becomes a logistical nightmare of ride shares, bus transfers, or favors from friends. Parents ration food, not just because of price, but because of distance. Seniors skip medication refills because the nearest pharmacy closed. Workers lose jobs because the retail centers that once provided flexible part-time shift work no longer exist. And the worst part, these deserts never refill. Once a major retailer leaves, no competitor steps in. The risk is too great, the margins too thin, the area too unstable. Empty buildings rot in sun-damaged silence. Parking lots crack, graffiti grows, nature creeps in. What was once commercial space becomes urban ruin. This is the final stage of the 2026 retail collapse. Not smaller packaging or locked cabinets or thinner aisles, but the physical erasure of stores themselves. A country where millions live in regions abandoned by the very corporations that once defined daily life. America's store shelves will never look the same again because in vast parts of the country, the shelves won't exist at all. The retail model that powered the 20th century has run out of road, and the people left behind now navigate a nation where access, affordability, and abundance are fading into memory. The collapse isn't theoretical, it's geographic, it's permanent, and it's already here.